Rio de Janeiro is famously forgiving to beginners in some contexts, and it is completely unforgiving in others. Living here without the language creates a constant drain on your resources. It dictates which neighborhoods you can navigate, how much you pay for basic services, and how you handle a crisis when your phone loses its signal. Most people moving here assume they have two options: spend years studying formal grammar, or lean entirely on translation apps for every single interaction. Integration becomes much easier once you prioritize the Carioca street register over the formal Portuguese taught in traditional classrooms. It's about mastering the specific sounds and slang of Rio. To prepare effectively, you must look at the actual return on investment for your study time. This chart tracks your hours of language study against the level of authentic Rio experience you can access. Memorizing 50 survival phrases handles most daily transactions. Because that takes under 10 hours to learn, your quality of life spikes right at this mark. We are going to break down what your life looks like at 3 specific stages: 0 words, 50 survival words, and a functional 400 words. By treating language as a practical tool for daily life rather than an academic subject, you can learn exactly what you need to navigate the city and ignore the rest. At Tier 0, you arrive with no Portuguese and rely entirely on English-speaking staff or digital translation. This limits you to the upscale corridors of Ipanema, Copacabana, and Leblon. These neighborhoods are optimized for people who haven't engaged with the local language yet. You can check into hotels, point at menus to order food, and take Ubers without speaking. Your activities are mostly restricted to guided tours of the Christ statue or Sugarloaf Mountain, where the infrastructure is built to accommodate English. The vulnerability of Tier 0 appears the moment you go off script. If you have a medical issue at a pharmacy or get lost in a neighborhood with no English-speaking staff, a simple transaction becomes a high-stress emergency. This level avoids the work of studying, but it forces you to live in a sanitized, fragile bubble where you pay a permanent premium for your lack of access. Moving to Tier 1 involves memorizing 50 to 100 core phrases. This includes basic numbers, directions, and essential social greetings. This small vocabulary allows you to move into residential neighborhoods like Botafogo or Flamengo, where English is rarely the operating language. You gain the autonomy to navigate the city infrastructure. You can take the metro confidently and give a driver specific instructions to avoid traffic. Socially, you can now order at local corner bars and participate in the street life around Lapa, which is where the city's actual culture concentrates on weekends. Cariocas are famously patient with beginners. When you make a baseline effort, people generally meet you more than halfway to help you communicate. The investment of those first 50 words changes your status from a vulnerable passenger to an active participant in the city's daily life. The biggest pitfall for new learners is spending their preparation time on formal grammar paradigms. Most courses lead with verb conjugation tables that offer very little utility in your first month. Reading comprehension is less important than mastering core social phrases like iai and to the bang. These signal that you are engaging with the city's actual register. The most significant hurdle is the Carioca sh sound. Standard Brazilian Portuguese apps teach a neutral S, but in Rio, the letter S at the end of syllables is pronounced like the SH in sheep. Vamos becomes vamos. Está becomes está. Gostoso becomes gostoso. If you've only practiced with neutral apps from São Paulo, your first conversation in a Rio market will be disorienting. You will likely miss half of what is said because the sounds don't match your training. This proves that acoustic preparation, training your ear to the local rhythm, is more valuable for daily survival than perfect grammatical accuracy. This decision tree matches your language level to your travel goals. For short-term stays in tourist zones with a higher budget, Tier 0 works. But expats planning to integrate must prioritize the sh sound and core social phrases before landing. You don't need to wait for total fluency to move here. Success in Rio comes from targeted, dialect-specific preparation for the interactions you will face in your first 30 days. Most language apps use recordings from São Paulo, leaving you struggling to understand the music and rhythm of Carioca speech once you arrive. Street Tongue bridges this gap by using AI scenarios built specifically for the Rio de Janeiro dialect. Their platform automatically incorporates the precise sh sounds into every lesson, allowing you to practice high-value scenarios like ordering at a local bar or handling your first conversation with a neighbor. Let me know in the comments if you prefer the convenience of the tourist bubble or the rich depth of local immersion. Also, tell us which city we should analyze for the next language ROI guide.